Go.
Hi, my name is Pamela Smith. Today I will present to you my informational speech on the foster care system, the pros and the cons, and the impact that it has on the children's lives. This is my audience.
I'm so done.
Today, after witnessing the abuse and neglect and abandonment, Charles Longley Brown founded the Children's Aid Society in 1853. As a minister, Brace knew that he had to do something about the children being sleeping on the streets of New York City. So he decided to ask his congregation to take the children in. We know this today as the foster care system. Brace wanted to supply a safe haven for those children and the children to follow. There are approximately 397,122 children in the foster care system. 101,666 children are eligible for adoption. 20,000 age out without being adopted. Without the emotional and financial support to succeed, 40% have been homeless. 60% of the young men will be convicted of a crime at least once. And yes, 25% age out do not have a high school diploma or GED. Now that leads us to the pros and cons of the foster care system. The foster care system set up a program called the Safe Haven. This is where the parents can drop their children off at the DFS office and voluntarily place their children. The downsides to this is they don't always get their children back, and as you know through history, the kids don't always wind up in a safe place. Now I have some stories to show you the children that's in the foster care system that goes through the different things of having a neglectful foster parent and a positive foster parent, but don't always have the same outcome. Today we have James' story. At the age of 1 and for the next 18 years, James was in and out of neglectful homes and abusive, having an abusive foster father, who was racist. James had a black friend that he spoke to one day, and his foster father decided to beat him, drag him outside, put a dog collar around his neck, and cuff him to a Confederate flag. Without any clothes on, he left James outside overnight in December weather to punish him so he will not speak to this young man again. But as a result of that, James changed his whole life around. He graduated from the University of Southern California with a master's in social work. That's because he didn't want not another child to have to go through what he went through with being in a home. Now I move on to a different story. His name is J.R. I changed his name for protection reasons. J.R.'s story is totally different. He was born to a mother that was addicted to drugs and alcohol and decided to abandon him and leave him in the hospital at birth. But a family member stepped up to take J.R. in. And at this time, J.R. decided that this was going to be his foster parents. They became his foster parents, and then they became his adopted parents. And on both sides of the family, they never treated him any different. They all accepted him, they loved him, they supported him, and in his situation, I would say that he had everything and anything that a child would need. But as time went on, J.R. felt as if he didn't belong. He wanted to know why he didn't look like his mother's side, why he didn't look like his daddy's side. But he never knew the whole story. So one day someone decided to tell him that he was adopted. And this is when he started feeling as if he was neglected, hopeless, useless, like he didn't belong. His self-esteem went downhill. So he started drinking. He started smoking cigarettes. He started smoking weed. He started skipping school. And everything else just started coming second in life. Now this, when he found out that he was adopted, this here just totally destroyed his drive of becoming something better than his situation. Now I have shared with you the pros and the cons, the safe havens, and the things about the foster care system. And that is the end of my presentation. Is there any questions?
Well,
You gotta put the thing on you.
I'll hold it. She'll hold it.
how do you think being in a foster home impacts the children themselves? Not speaking specifically about James or JR.
Say that question again.
How do you think being in a foster home affects children who weren't born into their foster parents like JR?
Because it all did depend on the child. Some kids can adapt and some kids cannot adapt. So this leads to different kinds of impacts. You have some that don't wind up in good homes. You know, they go from home to home and constantly get abused, neglected, and there's a lot of foster parents is out there just to get the checks. They really don't care what the kids do. Long as they can prove to the state that they got a roof over their head, clothes on their back, and sometimes food in their stomach, it's fine. But then you have some kids that grow up in a foster home and that's loved and everything else, but still have something in them that be like, I wasn't even worthy of my parents keeping me, so why do you want me? You know what I'm saying? They change it all around and make it still feel like it's them.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you think it's best not to tell your kid that they're adopted?
I think it's an appropriate time to tell a child when they're adopted and when they're not adopted. It all depends on the child and what their emotional state is and their self-esteem level. Some say it's best to tell them when they little, but then some say it's best to wait till they old enough so they can comprehend. But I think that's a give and take. It's all up to the parent and the child to figure out if they can handle that information.
So, going back to my first question, do you think that we need to do a better job in picking who can be a foster parent? Or do you think, like, it's just no help in the system? There's always a way of getting around it.
I really think some more rules need to be applied to how you go about picking the foster parents. I think more, they have classes, but I think like lie detector tests are inadmissible in court, so that won't work. But it really depends on who is the case manager for that child. Or are they going to put in the work to make sure they do drop by, just drive by and check on that child after that child get placed with a foster family? Or, you know, it's up